I answered the phone 3 weeks before my wedding, expecting my mother to ask about the seating chart. Instead, she dropped a bomb that would nearly destroy everything Emma and I had built together. Mom sounded almost cheerful when she explained how she and Dad took out a second mortgage on their house to bail my brother Tyler out of his third failed business venture. Now Tyler needed more money for rehab after a DUI, and they had maxed out everything. She asked me to postpone my wedding and give Tyler the $25,000 I had saved. When I refused, silence filled the line. Then her voice turned cold as ice, saying Dad wanted to talk. My father got on and told me if I would not help family, maybe I should not bother coming to Christmas anymore. I hung up the phone and stood in our kitchen, staring at the wall like someone had just punched me in the gut. Emma walked in from the bedroom, took one look at my face, and asked what was wrong. I told her everything. About the second mortgage, about Tyler's latest disaster, about my parents asking me to hand over our wedding fund like it was nothing more than loose change. Emma sat down at the kitchen table, processing what I had just said. She was supportive, always had been, but I could see the worry creeping into her eyes. Not worry about the money itself, but about what this meant for our future with my family. She asked if I thought my parents were serious about the Christmas threat. I told her I honestly did not know anymore. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Tyler, my younger brother by 4 years. This was not his first crisis, not even close. Tyler had bounced from one scheme to another since graduating high school. First, it was the food truck that went under in 6 months. Then the online dropshipping business that left him with a garage full of cheap electronics he could not sell. Last year it was a cryptocurrency mining operation that cost my parents $30,000 in equipment that now collected dust in their basement. The next morning I decided to call Tyler directly. I needed to hear his side of this before things got worse. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding groggy. When I asked him about the rehab and the DUI, he went quiet for a moment. Then he sighed and admitted things had gotten out of hand. He said he was finally getting his life together and that the rehab was court-ordered. He needed this, he told me. He really needed this. I explained that Emma and I had worked hard for years to save for our wedding. I had a good job as a project manager at a tech company, but I was not rich. Every dollar in that savings account represented late nights, sacrificed vacations, and careful budgeting. I could not just hand it over, even for family. Tyler's voice changed then. The remorseful tone vanished, replaced by something bitter and resentful. He said I always had it easy. Scholarships for college. A stable job right out of school. Meanwhile, he had struggled and fought for everything. He made it sound like my success was luck, and his failures were the universe's fault. I felt that familiar twist of guilt in my stomach, the one that had been there since we were kids. Mom and Dad always made me feel responsible for Tyler, like his problems were somehow mine to fix. But I held firm. I told him I loved him, wanted him to get better, but I could not sacrifice my wedding. The next day, my phone started exploding. Text messages poured in from aunts, uncles, cousins I had not heard from in years. Every single message had the same theme. How could I be so selfish? How could I abandon Tyler when he was sick and needed treatment? One cousin I barely knew called me heartless. An uncle said he was disappointed in the man I had become. I sat there, scrolling through message after message, feeling sick. Then I realized what had happened. My parents had told everyone a twisted version of the story. They made it sound like I was wealthy and cruel, refusing to help my suffering brother. They left out the part about the second mortgage, Tyler's history of failed ventures, or the fact that this was my wedding fund. I tried to explain the truth in the family group chat. I laid out the facts calmly and clearly. My mother responded within minutes, and her message was public for everyone to see. We gave you everything growing up. This is how you repay us? The guilt hit me like a freight train. Other family members started chiming in, agreeing with her. I was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Emma found me sitting on the couch, staring at my phone, and gently took it from my hands. She reminded me that we knew the truth, and that was what mattered. I wanted to believe her. I really did. 2 days later, I was at work when my personal email pinged. It was from our wedding venue, the beautiful barn and vineyard about an hour outside the city where we had booked everything 10 months ago. The message was confused and apologetic. Someone had called the venue that morning, claiming to be me, and tried to cancel the entire wedding. They said there was a family emergency, and we needed to cancel immediately. The venue coordinator was emailing to confirm whether this was legitimate. She noted that the voice on the phone sounded older than mine, which made her suspicious. But the caller had known details about our booking, including the date and the package we had selected. I called the venue immediately, my heart pounding. I confirmed that no, we absolutely were not canceling, and yes, someone was trying to sabotage our wedding. The coordinator was sympathetic but firm. She suggested I set up password protection on our account to prevent any further unauthorized contact. After I hung up, I sat at my desk, hands shaking. My parents had actually tried to cancel my wedding. They had called the venue, pretending to be me, and attempted to destroy the most important day of my life. This was not just pressure or guilt-tripping anymore. This was active sabotage. I spent my lunch break on the phone with the venue, setting up passwords and security measures. I called every other vendor we had booked. The photographer, the caterer, the florist, the DJ. I explained that someone might try to contact them claiming to be me and that they should ignore any cancellation requests unless I confirmed them in person with identification. Emma met me for dinner that night at a small Italian restaurant near our apartment. I updated her on everything, and she looked exhausted. The stress was affecting both of us. She taught second grade at an elementary school across town, and she told me her students had noticed she seemed distracted lately. 7-year-olds are more perceptive than people think. We tried to enjoy our meal, tried to talk about anything except my family. Emma mentioned that her maid of honor had finalized plans for the bachelorette party next week. Just a wine-tasting trip with her closest friends. Nothing wild, just a nice day away from all this chaos. I told her she deserved it. 3 days later, I got a call at work from my bank. The woman on the line asked if I had recently tried to access my savings account. I told her no. I had not touched that account in weeks. She explained that someone had attempted to log into my online banking using my social security number and answering the security questions correctly, including my mother's maiden name. The bank's fraud detection system had blocked the attempt because it came from an unfamiliar device and location. But she wanted to alert me and suggested I change all my passwords and security questions immediately. I felt cold all over. My parents had my social security number from when I was a kid. They knew my mother's maiden name, because it was, well, my mother's name. They had tried to access my account to take the money directly. That evening, I called my parents. My father answered, and I confronted him about the bank incident. He sounded genuinely shocked and denied everything. He said they would never do something like that. Maybe it was identity theft from some random hacker. He sounded hurt that I would accuse them. But then my mother got on the line. Her voice was shaky, desperate. She said they were just trying to help Tyler. They did not know what else to do. My brother could die without treatment, she said. Did I want that on my conscience? I told her Tyler had been to rehab twice before on their dime, and nothing had changed. Emma had been researching addiction treatment, and she reminded me that recovery only works when the person wants it. Tyler had to want to change. My money would not fix him. My mother started crying. Real, gasping sobs. She said I did not understand what it was like to watch your child suffer. I almost broke right there. Almost agreed to send them something, anything, just to make her stop crying. But Emma was sitting next to me, holding my hand, shaking her head gently. She was right. This was manipulation. This was my mother using my love for her against me. I told my parents I would send Tyler $500 as a gesture of goodwill. That was all I could offer. My father called it insulting. My mother kept crying. I hung up before I changed my mind. The next morning, I transferred $500 to Tyler's account and sent him a text explaining that this was everything I could spare. I told him I hoped he got the help he needed, and I meant it. Despite everything, he was still my brother. Tyler responded with a simple thanks. I felt relieved. Maybe this would ease the tension. Maybe we could all move forward. 2 days later, Emma showed me Tyler's Facebook page. He had posted a photo of a rehab facility with a caption thanking everyone for their support. The post specifically thanked me for the down payment and said he would have the rest of the funding soon. He made it sound like I had committed to paying for his entire treatment. My phone started buzzing immediately. Family members commenting on Tyler's post, praising me for stepping up. One aunt wrote about how proud she was, that I had finally done the right thing. A cousin said he knew I would come through. I commented on the post immediately, clarifying that I had sent $500 total, not a down payment. I explained that this was all I could contribute. Tyler's response came an hour later, a public comment calling me a liar. He said I had promised to fund his rehab and now I was backing out. He accused me of playing games with a recovering addict's life. The family turned on me again, but this time it was worse. People who had praised me hours earlier now called me manipulative and cruel. Someone said I was using money to control Tyler. Another person suggested I wanted Tyler to fail, so I would always be the successful son. Emma's parents called her that evening. They had seen some of the drama on social media because Emma's aunt was friends with one of my cousins. They were concerned. They had contributed $5,000 toward our wedding, and now they were worried about what kind of family Emma was marrying into. Emma spent an hour on the phone reassuring them that I was nothing like my relatives, that this was all a terrible situation but we were handling it. After she hung up, Emma looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said her parents still loved me and supported us, but they were scared. I was scared too. The next week, a certified letter arrived at our apartment. I signed for it, confused about who would be sending me official mail. I opened the envelope and felt my blood run cold. My parents were taking me to small claims court. They claimed I owed them $50,000 for loans they had given me during college in my early 20s. The filing listed various amounts, all supposedly lent with the expectation of repayment. Birthday money, Christmas gifts, help with textbooks, a laptop they bought me sophomore year. None of it had been loans. Every single dollar had been given as a gift, freely and without any mention of paying it back. But now they were claiming otherwise, and they had filed an official lawsuit. The court date was scheduled for 1 week before my wedding. I sat on the couch, reading the lawsuit papers over and over, hoping the words would somehow change. Emma came home from work and found me there, still in my work clothes from that morning. I had called in sick, unable to face the office while this was happening. She read the papers, her face going pale. Then she grabbed her phone and started searching for lawyers. Within an hour, we had an appointment with an attorney who specialized in family law. The consultation cost $200. He reviewed our case and said he could represent me for $2,000 total, assuming the case did not drag on. $2,000 we had not planned to spend. $2,000 that should have gone to our honeymoon. I hired him anyway. What choice did I have? The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Frank with kind eyes and a firm handshake, told me the case was frivolous. Parents cannot retroactively decide that gifts were loans. But I still had to show up to court and present my defense. He asked if I had any documentation proving the money was given as gifts. I spent the next 3 days digging through old emails and text messages. I found birthday cards I had scanned and saved digitally. Christmas notes where my parents specifically wrote things like, "No need to pay us back and enjoy your gift." I found text messages from my mother telling me to use the money for books or food, never mentioning repayment. Frank reviewed everything and said we had a strong case. He seemed confident. That should have made me feel better, but I could not shake the anxiety eating away at my stomach. I was barely sleeping. Work was suffering. My boss had noticed and pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay. I told him I was dealing with family issues and left it at that. Emma was amazing through all of it. She organized our evidence, helped me prepare what to say in court, and kept me from falling apart. But I could see the stress wearing on her too. She was quieter than usual, less likely to laugh at our usual jokes. The joy that normally surrounded our wedding planning had been replaced by dread. The court date arrived on a Tuesday morning. I took a personal day from work. Frank met me at the courthouse steps, briefcase in hand, looking professional and calm. I wished I felt the same way. We walked into the courtroom, and I saw them. My parents sat on the other side with Tyler between them. All three looked somber and united, like a united front against me. My mother wore a conservative dress. My father had on his best suit. Tyler was actually clean-shaven and wearing a button-down shirt, probably the first time in months. When the judge called our case, my mother took the stand first. She cried as she talked about how they had sacrificed everything for me, how they went without to make sure I had opportunities, how they helped me through college when I was struggling. She made it sound like they had given their last dollars to keep me fed and housed. None of it was true. I had worked part-time all through college. I had scholarships that covered most of my tuition. Yes, they helped, but they were not destitute. They were middle-class people doing what parents do. Then they presented their evidence. A promissory note that I had supposedly signed, agreeing to pay back $50,000. I stared at it in shock. The signature looked somewhat like mine, but I had never seen this document before in my life. Frank immediately objected, calling it fraudulent. The judge examined the note carefully. She asked my parents when this was signed. My mother claimed it was 5 years ago, at a family dinner. The judge asked why they waited 5 years to pursue collection. My father stammered something about wanting to give me time. Then it was my turn. Frank presented all my evidence. The emails, the text messages, the birthday cards with clear language indicating gifts, not loans. He walked the judge through each piece methodically, showing a pattern of my parents giving money freely without expectation of repayment. The judge looked at both sides, her expression neutral. She asked my parents if they had any other documentation besides the promissory note. They did not. She asked if they had any witnesses to me signing this note. They did not. After what felt like hours but was probably 20 minutes, the judge made her ruling. She dismissed the case. She said the evidence clearly showed the money was given as gifts, and the promissory note appeared to be created after the fact. She admonished my parents for wasting the court's time with a frivolous lawsuit. I felt a wave of relief so strong I almost collapsed. Frank shook my hand and told me to take care. I thanked him, knowing that $2,000 was worth every penny to clear my name. Outside the courthouse, I just wanted to leave, to go home and forget this nightmare. But Tyler caught up to me in the parking lot. He called my name, and I turned around. His face was twisted with rage. He got right in my face, closer than comfortable, and started screaming. "I destroyed the family," he yelled. "I humiliated our parents. I always thought I was better than everyone else." I tried to walk away, but Tyler grabbed my arm. I pulled back, telling him to let go. He held tighter. I pushed his hand off me, harder than I meant to. Tyler stumbled backward and fell, landing on his hip. He had barely touched the ground before he started yelling that I assaulted him. I looked around. A woman across the parking lot was holding up her phone, clearly recording. My stomach dropped. Tyler sat on the pavement, holding his elbow where he had a small scrape. He yelled louder, asking if anyone saw me attack him. The woman with the phone nodded, though from her angle, she could not have seen how it started. Tyler pulled out his phone and called 911. He told the dispatcher that his brother had just assaulted him outside the courthouse, that he was injured, that he needed police. I stood there, frozen. This could not be happening. 2 police officers arrived within 10 minutes. Tyler was still on the ground, playing up his injury. The scrape on his elbow was tiny, but he acted like I had beaten him. The woman showed the officers her video. It was shaky, and started mid-confrontation, making it unclear who had done what. Tyler told his version of events. He said I attacked him without provocation, that he was trying to talk to me, and I went crazy. The officers asked for my side. I explained that Tyler had grabbed me first, that I was defending myself, but I had no proof. One officer looked at the video again. He looked at Tyler's minor scrape. He looked at me, standing there in my suit from court. Then he sighed and told me I was under arrest for assault. They handcuffed me right there in the courthouse parking lot, read me my rights, put me in the back of the police car while Tyler watched with this satisfied smirk on his face. My wedding was 9 days away, and I was being arrested. At the station, they fingerprinted me. took my photo, put me in a holding cell for 3 hours while they processed paperwork. Eventually, Frank got word about what happened and came down to help. He arranged bail, which cost $1,000. Emma picked me up from the station. She did not say anything at first, just hugged me tightly in the parking lot. On the drive home, she asked what we were going to do. I told her honestly that I did not know. The assault charge would not go to trial for 3 months, long after the wedding. Frank said it probably would not stick. Self-defense was a valid claim, and Tyler's injury was minor. But it was on my record now. An arrest for assault, right before I was supposed to get married. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My body ached from stress, and I had barely slept. Emma had already left for work, leaving me a note on the kitchen counter with a heart drawn at the bottom. I loved her so much it hurt. I made coffee and tried to think about anything except the disaster my life had become. Frank had been right that the assault charge probably would not stick, but that did not matter right now. What mattered was that it existed, an arrest record with my name on it. I forced myself to go to work. I needed some sense of normalcy, something to remind me that my entire life had not imploded. The project I was managing was behind schedule, and my team needed direction. I could focus on that. I could be good at my job, even if everything else was falling apart. I made it until 2 in the afternoon before my boss called me into his office. Sarah from Human Resources was there too, sitting in the chair across from his desk. My stomach dropped. My boss, a decent guy named Richard who had always been fair with me, looked uncomfortable. He asked me to sit down. Sarah pulled out a folder, and I knew this was not going to be good. Someone had sent an anonymous email to the company's general HR address. Sarah slid printouts across the desk. They were screenshots of Tyler's social media posts, the ones where he called me a violent family abuser who refused to help his sick brother. The email included a link to public records showing my recent arrest for assault. Our company had a morality clause in the employment contract. Nothing specific, just vague language about maintaining professional standards and not bringing disrepute to the organization. Sarah explained that they needed to investigate the allegations and that I was being placed on unpaid leave pending the outcome. Unpaid leave. 7 days before my wedding. I tried to explain what was really happening, but Sarah cut me off. She said the investigation needed to be impartial and they would contact me once it was complete. Richard looked genuinely sorry, but he did not overrule her. I cleaned out my desk in a daze. My coworkers watched, confused and whispering. I had been with this company for 6 years. I had good performance reviews. Now I was walking out with a cardboard box of personal items, like some kind of criminal. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could drive. Without my income, we were in trouble. Emma's teacher salary was decent, but not enough to cover both our rent and wedding expenses. We had some savings left, but it was dwindling fast with all the legal fees and unexpected costs. I knew Tyler or my parents had sent that email. Who else would do this? They were systematically destroying my life, piece by piece, trying to force me to give them money. When I got home, I found Emma sitting on the floor of our living room, her phone in her lap, crying. I dropped the box and rushed to her side. She showed me her screen. Someone had created a fake social media account using my name and one of my photos. The account had been active for less than a day, but it had already done massive damage. The fake Grace had posted horrible things. Racist comments. Misogynistic rants about women. Threats against public figures. It was vile and disgusting, and nothing like anything I would ever say. But that was not even the worst part. Emma's friends had been sending her screenshots, horrified and confused. Some of them were asking if she was okay, if she knew about this. The account had tagged Emma's school in several posts, specifically mentioning that Emma worked there and making inappropriate comments about teachers. Emma's boss had already called her in for a conversation. The principal wanted to know if this was really me, or if someone was impersonating me. Emma had tried to explain, but the principal was skeptical. Why would someone go through so much effort to create a fake account? What had we done to deserve this kind of harassment? I reported the fake account immediately, filling out the platform's impersonation forms. But these things took time. The account was still up, still posting, still doing damage. Then things got worse. Wedding guests started contacting us, confused and upset. The fake account had been messaging people, sending horrible things. Some messages uninvited them from the wedding. Others said offensive things that made people think I had lost my mind. Several guests had already canceled their RSVPs. Emma and I spent the entire evening sending messages to everyone we knew, explaining that someone was impersonating me. Some people believed us immediately. Others seemed uncertain. A few distant relatives decided not to come anyway, not wanting to be involved in whatever was going on. The next morning, our photographer called. Someone had emailed him claiming to be me, saying the wedding was canceled and demanding a refund. The photographer was annoyed. He had already ordered equipment rentals and blocked out the day. He told me that if there was any more drama, he was going to charge us a cancellation fee and walk away. I spent 3 hours on the phone with vendors, confirming and reconfirming every detail. The caterer, the florist, the DJ, the transportation company. Each conversation was humiliating. Each person asked what was going on. I had to explain that someone was sabotaging us while trying not to sound insane. Emma came home from school that day looking defeated. She told me quietly that one of the other teachers had asked her if everything was okay at home. Word was spreading at her school about the social media account. Parents had started calling the school, concerned about a teacher who was engaged to someone who posted such horrible things. We sat together on the couch, not talking, just existing in the weight of everything collapsing around us. I had no job. Emma's reputation was being destroyed. Our wedding was falling apart. And my family was responsible for all of it. That evening, I got an email from our wedding venue. My heart stopped before I even opened it. The venue manager wrote that my parents had shown up in person that afternoon. They had a document claiming to be a power of attorney, saying they had legal authority to make decisions on my behalf. They told the venue staff that I was mentally unstable and needed help, and they wanted to cancel the wedding for my own protection. The venue manager was overwhelmed. Between the attempted phone cancellation, the power of attorney, and all the other chaos, she was questioning whether to keep our booking. She wrote that she had never dealt with this level of suspicious activity before. She gave me until the end of the week to straighten everything out, or she would cancel the wedding herself and keep the $15,000 deposit. I had 5 days to fix this, or we would lose everything. Emma and I barely slept that night. We made lists and plans, trying to figure out how to save the venue and salvage what was left of our wedding. By morning, we had a strategy. We would go to the venue in person with every piece of documentation we had: IDs, bank statements, contracts, anything to prove we were the legitimate clients, and my parents were interfering. We drove the hour to the vineyard on Thursday morning. Emma had taken a personal day from school. I was already on leave, so my schedule was wide open. The countryside was beautiful, rolling hills covered in grapevines, but I could not appreciate any of it. My stomach was tied in knots. The venue manager, a woman named Carol in her 50s with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude, met us in her office. She looked tired. We spread our documents across her desk. Driver's licenses. The original signed contract with our signatures. Bank statements showing the payments coming from my account. Emma even brought our engagement photos to prove we were real people planning a real wedding. Carol examined everything carefully. She asked questions about the fake power of attorney. We admitted we had no idea how my parents had created such a convincing forgery. Carol sighed and said she believed us. But this situation was unprecedented. She had been managing this venue for 15 years and had never seen anything like it. She told us bluntly that she wanted to drop our booking. The liability and stress were not worth it. But she also recognized that we were victims here, not the cause of the problem. After 3 hours of negotiation and more phone calls to our lawyer, Frank, Carol agreed to keep our wedding date under one condition. We had to pay an additional $3,000 security deposit to cover any potential damages or last-minute cancellations caused by the ongoing interference. $3,000. I wanted to scream. That was our emergency fund, the money we had set aside for unexpected situations. But what choice did we have? We agreed. I transferred the money right there from my phone, watching our bank account drop to almost nothing. Carol thanked us for being understanding and promised to put additional security measures in place. No one would be allowed to make changes without physically appearing with ID and saying a password we created. We chose Emma's childhood dog's name, something my parents could never guess. We left the venue exhausted, but relieved. At least we still had a location for the wedding. On the drive home, Emma rested her hand on my leg while I drove. She said we were going to get through this. I wanted to believe her. My phone rang. Emma's maid of honor, a woman named Jenna who had been Emma's best friend since college. Emma answered on speaker. Jenna sounded panicked. Someone had sent photos to Emma's school principal. Photos from Emma's bachelorette party last weekend, the wine tasting with her friends. But the photos had been photoshopped to look like something completely different. Innocent pictures of Emma and her friends holding wine glasses had been altered to show what looked like drug paraphernalia on the tables. Bottles of wine had been edited to look like hard liquor. The backgrounds had been darkened to make the event look wild and inappropriate. Jenna was calling because the principal's office had contacted her, asking if she was aware of the photos and if she could verify what really happened at the party. The principal had scheduled an emergency meeting with Emma for the next morning. Emma's hand started shaking. She taught 7-year-olds. She was held to a high moral standard, as all teachers were. If the school believed these photos were real, if they thought she had been doing drugs or behaving inappropriately, she could lose her teaching license. We spent that night finding the original photos. Jenna sent us every picture from the bachelorette party. We compared them to the doctored versions. The Photoshop work was sophisticated, but you could see the differences if you looked closely. Shadows that did not quite match. Pixels that were slightly off. We compiled a complete file with originals and explanations. Emma kept saying she should just quit, that we should cancel the wedding, take what little money we had left, hire lawyers, and fight this properly. She was ready to give up, and I could not blame her. My family had turned our lives into a war zone. But something in me refused to surrender. If we canceled now, they won. My parents and Tyler would have successfully destroyed the most important day of our lives. They would have proven that if they applied enough pressure, I would break. I told Emma we were not canceling. We were getting married in 5 days, exactly as planned. I promised her we would fix everything. I did not know how, but I would figure it out. The next morning, Emma went to her meeting with the principal. I spent the time digging through Tyler's social media, looking for any clue about who had helped him create the fake account and Photoshop the images. I found what I was looking for on a freelancing website. Tyler had left a review for a graphic designer 2 days ago, praising their quick work on a personal project. I screenshot everything. The review, the designer's profile, the timing that matched exactly when the fake social media account had been created. It was not definitive proof, but it was something. Emma came home 3 hours later. She had been suspended without pay, pending a full investigation into the photos. The principal did not outright accuse her of anything, but the suspension alone was devastating. Emma had never been in trouble at work before. She was one of those teachers who stayed late, bought supplies with her own money, and genuinely loved her students. Now she was home, suspended, with a cloud over her reputation. Her eyes were red from crying. She sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I sat next to her and held her hand. We did not speak for a long time. That afternoon my father called. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. His voice was different than usual. Softer, almost conciliatory. He said he knew things had gotten out of hand. He understood Emma and I were under stress. He wanted to propose a solution that would work for everyone. If I gave Tyler the $25,000, they would make everything go away. I asked what that meant. He explained that Tyler would drop the assault charge. They would stop the social media attacks. They would contact Emma's school and tell them the photos were fake, that it was all a misunderstanding. They would fix everything they had broken. I realized then that this had all been planned. Every single step. The fake social media account. The photoshopped pictures, the venue interference, the email to my company. It was a coordinated campaign designed to destroy my life until I had no choice but to pay. My father gave me 24 hours to decide. He said he was sorry it had come to this, but Tyler really needed help, and they were out of options. Family takes care of family, he said. I hung up without answering. Emma and I sat in our living room, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, and talked about what to do. She was crying again, saying she just wanted it all to stop. She did not care about the money anymore. She would work extra years to save up again. She just wanted our lives back. I was ready to give in, ready to transfer the money and hope my family kept their word. I opened my banking app, my finger hovering over the transfer button. Then my phone rang. It was Frank, my lawyer. He said he had been doing some digging into Tyler's situation because something about the whole story did not add up. He had news. Tyler was not going to rehab. There was no DUI. There was no court-ordered treatment. Frank had checked public records. Tyler had no recent arrests, no charges, nothing. The entire story was a fabrication. Frank had found something else. He had a friend who worked in financial investigation, and they had looked into the second mortgage my parents took out. The money had not gone to bail out Tyler's business. Tyler and a friend had used it to invest in cryptocurrency. They had fallen for a scam, one of those too-good-to-be-true investment opportunities. They lost everything in less than 2 weeks. Frank sent me screenshots he had found on a private Discord server. Tyler bragging to friends about the opportunity of a lifetime. Tyler talking about how he was going to be rich. Then Tyler going silent when it all fell apart. I stared at my phone, reading through the messages. Everything was a lie. The rehab, the DUI, all of it. My parents had taken out a second mortgage for Tyler's fake investment scheme, and now they were trying to make me pay for his mistakes. I called Tyler immediately. Tyler answered on the second ring, his voice carrying that familiar smugness. He asked if I had made my decision, if I was ready to do the right thing for once in my life. I did not say anything at first. I just listened to him breathe, confident and self-assured. Then I told him I knew about the cryptocurrency, about the scam, about how there was no rehab and no DUI. The silence on his end was deafening. For a solid 10 seconds, Tyler said nothing. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. He told me to prove it. Even if I was right, what did it matter? Mom and Dad still needed the money. They still took out that second mortgage. Whether it was for rehab or a bad investment, the debt was real. I told him I had screenshots from his Discord. I had Frank's investigation findings. I had proof he had been lying to everyone. Tyler's voice changed. He told me I would not do anything with that information. I was too much of a coward. I always had been. Then he hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling something shift inside me. My entire life, I had been the responsible one, the one who followed rules and tried to keep peace. Tyler had been the wild card, and I had been expected to clean up his messes or at least stay out of the way while my parents did. But I was done being the doormat. I was done letting my family walk all over me because they assumed I would never fight back. I called Frank and told him I wanted to go on the offensive. We spent the next 2 hours putting together a comprehensive document. Every piece of evidence we had. Screenshots of Tyler's Discord messages about the crypto scheme. Proof that his rehab story was fabricated. Evidence of the fake social media account traced back to Tyler through his Fiverr payment history, which Frank's investigator friend had uncovered. The photoshopped images with digital forensics showing they had been altered. Documentation of my parents' attempted fraud with the fake power of attorney at the venue. We included the court's dismissal of my parents' frivolous lawsuit. We added Tyler's public accusations against me and the pattern of harassment. Frank helped me organize it all into a clear, damning timeline. We saved copies to 3 different cloud services. This was not going to disappear. I did not transfer the money. Instead, I called my father back before the 24-hour deadline was up. I told him I had evidence of Tyler's lies. I gave them one chance. Drop everything immediately and leave me alone, or I would go public with all of it and press every charge I legally could. My father scoffed. He said I was bluffing, that I did not have the spine to actually follow through. He said I should think carefully about burning bridges with my family. Then he hung up. That was his mistake. He assumed I was the same kid who used to cave under pressure. He did not realize how much I had changed, or how far he and my mother had pushed me. I filed a police report about the fake social media account, providing all the evidence linking it to Tyler. I filed a report about the fake power of attorney, noting that it was a felony to forge legal documents. I sent the complete evidence package to Emma's school principal, including the original photos and proof that the altered versions were created by someone with a vendetta against us. Then I did the hardest thing. I sent the full evidence package to the family group chat. Every aunt, uncle, and cousin who had judged me. Everyone who had called me selfish and heartless without knowing the truth. I laid it all out with a simple message. This is what really happened. Tyler lied about rehab. He lost our parents' money on a cryptocurrency scam. He and our parents created fake accounts, forged documents, and systematically tried to destroy my life because I would not give them my wedding money. I have reported everything to the police. I am done being the villain in their story. I hit send and turned off my phone. Emma and I went out for dinner that night, a small diner near our apartment where nobody knew us. We ate burgers and talked about anything except my family. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. When I turned my phone back on 3 hours later, it had exploded. The family group chat had over 200 new messages. I scrolled through them slowly. Aunts and uncles were horrified. Many were apologizing to me, saying they had no idea. Some were confronting my parents and Tyler directly in the chat. One uncle, my father's brother, wrote that he was disgusted and ashamed. My mother called 12 times. Tyler sent a string of texts that started angry and ended desperate. My father left one voicemail, his voice cold, telling me I had made a terrible mistake. But I also saw messages of support, cousins saying they believed me, an aunt offering to help if I needed anything. Emma's family reaching out to say they were proud of how I had handled everything. The next morning, the police contacted me. They were pursuing charges against Tyler for identity theft and harassment. The threats he had made on the fake account qualified as terroristic threats under state law. The detective I spoke with said Tyler was looking at serious consequences if convicted. They were also investigating my parents for the fake power of attorney. That was forgery and attempted fraud. The detective asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. Within 48 hours, my company called. Richard, my boss, said the investigation had concluded. They had reviewed all the evidence I provided through Frank. They understood I was the victim of a targeted harassment campaign. I was being reinstated immediately with back pay for the days I had been on leave. Richard apologized for the situation and told me to take the rest of the week off for my wedding. Emma's school called the same day. The principal had reviewed our evidence package. Emma's suspension was lifted. The investigation was closed. The principal apologized and said Emma could return to work after her honeymoon. Emma cried when she got that call, but this time it was relief. That evening, my mother called. She was hysterical, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She begged me to drop the charges. The police had contacted them. Tyler was going to be arrested. They could lose their house if they were convicted of fraud. She admitted that Tyler had lied to them about the rehab. She admitted they had pressured me because Tyler convinced them I was hoarding money out of spite. She was crying and apologizing and begging all at once. My father got on the line. His voice was quiet, defeated. He said they had made mistakes. He asked what I wanted from them. I had all the power now. My family was finally facing consequences for what they had done. Tyler could go to jail. My parents could face criminal charges. Their reputation in the extended family was destroyed. I had won. But I did not feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Emma and I sat at our kitchen table the night before our wedding. The apartment was quiet, except for the sound of rain pattering against the windows. My phone sat between us, silent for the first time in weeks. The chaos had finally stopped. Emma's suspension had been lifted that morning. My job had reinstated me with an apology and back pay. The fake social media accounts were deleted. The assault charge against me was dropped after the prosecutor reviewed the evidence and Tyler's history of harassment. Everything was falling back into place, piece by piece. But I still had to decide what to do about my family. The police had enough evidence to charge Tyler with multiple crimes: identity theft, harassment, making terroristic threats. Each charge carried potential jail time. My parents faced fraud charges for the fake power of attorney. Their lawyer had called Frank, asking if we could negotiate a resolution. Emma took my hand across the table. She told me this was my decision, and she would support whatever I chose. She did not push me either direction. She just sat with me while I thought. I had spent weeks being hurt, angry, and scared. My family had tried to destroy everything I had built. They had attacked my job, my reputation, and the woman I loved. They had turned what should have been the happiest time of my life into a nightmare. But they were still my family, flawed, manipulative, and destructive, but still the people who raised me. Tyler was still my brother, even if he had become someone I barely recognized. I thought about what I really wanted, not revenge, not to watch them suffer. I just wanted them to understand what they had done. I wanted real accountability, not just words. I called my parents. My mother answered, her voice small and frightened. I told her I would agree not to press charges, but only under specific conditions. She needed to hear them all before she agreed to anything. First, they had to publicly admit to the extended family that Tyler had lied about everything. The rehab, the DUI, all of it. They needed to tell the truth about the cryptocurrency scam and acknowledge that they had harassed and sabotaged me. Second, they had to reimburse me for the $3,000 security deposit their interference had cost us at the venue. I did not care if they had to set up a payment plan. They caused that expense, and they would pay it back. Third, they had to attend counseling. Real therapy, not a few sessions to check a box. They needed to work on why they enabled Tyler, and why they thought it was acceptable to manipulate and hurt me. Fourth, Tyler had to attend real counseling too. Not for addiction, but for his pattern of lying, manipulation, and blaming others for his failures. Fifth, they all had to stay away from Emma and me for at least 1 year. No calls, no texts, no showing up at our home. Any future contact would be on my terms only, if and when I decided I was ready. My mother was crying, but she agreed to everything. My father got on the phone. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Okay." Just one word. Okay. I told them I would have Frank draw up a formal agreement. If they violated any of the terms, I would pursue charges immediately. They agreed. Tyler's situation was different. Some of the charges against him were criminal matters that did not require my cooperation. The prosecutor decided to move forward with reduced charges. Tyler pleaded guilty to harassment and identity theft. He received 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling. He also had to issue a public apology on social media. His apology post went up 2 days after our wedding. It was stiff and clearly written by a lawyer, but it was there. Tyler admitted to creating fake accounts, spreading lies, and harassing me and Emma. He took responsibility for his actions. The comments were a mix of support for him getting help and condemnation for what he had done. Our wedding day arrived on a bright Saturday in late September. The sky was clear, the temperature perfect. The vineyard looked like something out of a magazine, with rows of grapevines stretching into the distance, and the old barn decorated with lights and flowers. My parents were not there. Tyler was not there. That hurt more than I expected. I had always imagined my father walking me down the aisle in some variation, or my mother crying happy tears in the front row. Instead, those seats were empty, but other seats were filled. Emma's family was there, beaming with pride. Her father shook my hand that morning and told me he was honored to welcome me into their family. Emma's mother had helped with last-minute details, treating me like I was already her son. My Aunt Patricia was there, my father's sister. She had always been kind to me growing up. She approached me before the ceremony started and hugged me tightly. She told me she was proud of how I had handled everything, and that she would be honored to walk me down the aisle if I wanted. I almost broke down right there. I told her yes. Several cousins came. The ones who had believed me from the start, or who had apologized after seeing the truth. They filled in the gaps left by my immediate family. It was smaller than we had originally planned. Some guests had canceled and never rescheduled, but everyone who was there genuinely wanted to be there. The ceremony was beautiful. Emma looked stunning in her dress, walking down the aisle toward me with tears in her eyes. When we said our vows, I meant every single word. Through everything we had been through, she had never wavered. She had stood by me when everything was falling apart. At the reception, Emma's father gave a toast. He talked about resilience and love. He said that Emma and I had proven our commitment to each other before we even got married by standing together through adversity. People cheered and raised their glasses. Later that night, after the first dance and the cake cutting, I found myself standing at the edge of the vineyard, looking out at the sunset. Aunt Patricia came and stood next to me. She did not say anything for a while. Then she told me my father called her that morning. He had asked how I was doing. He told her he was proud of me, even if he could not say it directly. I did not know what to do with that information. I nodded and thanked her for telling me. The next 2 weeks, Emma and I were on our honeymoon in Maine. We stayed in a cabin by the ocean, spent our days hiking and eating fresh seafood, and our nights talking about our future. We did not talk about my family. We focused on us and what we were building together. When we got back, there was a letter waiting at our apartment. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away without opening it. Emma told me to at least read it. I did. It was 3 pages, handwritten, vulnerable, in a way I had never seen from my mother before. She admitted that she and my father had always favored Tyler because he struggled more. They thought I was strong enough to handle anything, so they put more effort into helping him. She saw now that they had damaged me and enabled Tyler to become someone who hurt people without consequences. She did not ask for forgiveness in the letter. She just said she was sorry. She said she understood if I never wanted a relationship with them again. She hoped someday I might, but she would respect whatever I decided. I put the letter in a drawer. I was not ready to respond. Maybe I would be someday. Maybe I would not. 3 months passed. The holidays came. Emma and I hosted Thanksgiving at our apartment. Her family came. Aunt Patricia came with her husband and kids. 2 of my cousins came with their families. It was crowded and loud and perfect. Someone asked if I had invited my parents. I said no. Maybe next year. Maybe never. I was still figuring it out. Christmas came and went. My parents sent a card with a gift card inside. I put the gift card in the drawer with the letter and hung the card on the fridge. It felt like progress, even if I was not sure where it was going. By spring, Tyler had completed his community service. He sent me an email. It was not the court-ordered apology. This one was longer, more personal. He admitted he had been jealous of me for years. Jealous of my success, my stability, my relationship with Emma. He had convinced himself that I owed him something, that my happiness was somehow at his expense. He said counseling was helping him see how toxic his thinking had been. He did not ask me to forgive him. He just wanted me to know he was working on becoming better. I did not respond to that email either, but I did not delete it. I saved it in a folder, the same way I saved my mother's letter. Small pieces of accountability that might someday add up to something. Emma and I celebrated our first anniversary in September. We went back to the vineyard where we got married and had dinner at the restaurant on the property. Sitting there, looking at the same view we had on our wedding day, Emma asked if I regretted how everything had happened, if I wished my family had been there. I thought about it honestly. Then I told her no. I did not regret it. Yes, it would have been nice to have my parents and brother at our wedding. But what we went through taught me something crucial. It taught me that love without respect is not real love. That family who manipulate you do not actually value you. That sometimes the hardest battles are not about winning. They are about knowing when to walk away and when to stand your ground. I stood my ground. I protected what mattered. Emma and I built something real together, tested it under fire, and it held strong. That was worth more than a picture-perfect wedding with people who did not truly support us. Emma smiled and squeezed my hand. She said she was proud of me. I told her I was proud of us. As we drove home that night, I thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the systematic destruction of my life that my own family had orchestrated. I thought about how close I had come to giving in, to handing over that money just to make it stop. But I had not broken. I had fought back. And in fighting back, I had learned who I really was. Not the peacekeeper who absorbed everyone else's problems. Not the responsible son who fixed his brother's messes. I was someone who could set boundaries, protect the people he loved, and demand accountability from those who hurt him. My parents started attending their counseling sessions. I knew because Aunt Patricia told me they mentioned it at a family gathering. She said my mother had talked about the work they were doing, about recognizing patterns of favoritism and enablement. She said my father had become quieter, more reflective. They were both changed by what happened, though whether that change was deep or just surface level remained to be seen. Tyler got a real job. He was working at a warehouse, steady hours, and decent pay. Nothing glamorous, but it was honest work. According to Aunt Patricia, he had stopped talking about his next big idea. He came to family events, and mostly kept to himself. That was probably growth, in its own way. As for me, I was building the life I wanted. Emma and I started talking about buying a house. We adopted a dog, a goofy golden retriever we named Charlie. We hosted game nights with friends. Emma got promoted to lead teacher at her school. My career was going well, and I had been given more responsibility at work. We built a family with the people who showed up for us. Emma's parents became like my own, welcoming and supportive. Aunt Patricia and I got closer, having lunch once a month. My cousins who had stood by me became real friends, not just people I saw at holidays. I learned that family is not just about blood. It is about who shows up when things get hard. It is about who stands beside you when everyone else walks away. Emma had proven that. Her family had proven that. My chosen family had proven that. And I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or allowing people back into your life before they have earned it. Forgiveness can be something you do for yourself, to let go of anger and move forward. Whether my parents and Tyler earned their way back into my life was still an open question. I was not in a hurry to answer it. The most important lesson I learned was this: standing up for yourself does not make you selfish. Protecting your peace does not make you cruel. Setting boundaries does not make you the villain. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes family means walking away until people learn to treat you with respect. I fought for my life, my marriage, and my future. I won, and that victory was not about revenge or proving a point. It was about refusing to let anyone destroy what Emma and I built together. That is the story of how my parents took a second mortgage for my brother, and then demanded I give up my wedding for him. How they tried to systematically dismantle my life when I refused. And how I learned to fight back, stand my ground, and build the life I deserved. To anyone listening who is dealing with family that manipulates or hurts them, hear this. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You have the right to protect yourself and the people you love. You have the right to demand respect, and you have the right to walk away from people who refuse to give it, even if they are family, especially if they are family. What about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who expected too much? Have you faced a situation where you had to choose between keeping peace and protecting yourself? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there feel less alone. Take care of yourselves. You deserve respect, love, and peace.